This is Wildcat Country.
It's only right. The ball's in his hands. A milestone victory for Arizona. Simon says championship.
All the inside scoop on U of A athletics.
It's up for the end zone. Arizona has scored the touchdown. Wildcats win.
Let's go to work, fella.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And finally, Shane, it is game week. And it's one of the biggest episodes we've had in a long time. We have a couple of great guests, and we also have a brand new sponsor in Backcourt Marketing who we'll talk a lot about as the show goes along. What a great show we have for you guys this week. Yogi Roth, lead analyst from the Pac-12 Network, and Noah Fifita, the most highly rated or the most highly talked about commit of the 2022 class from Wildcat fans, the quarterback at Servite High, going to join us. But before we get to them, we want to talk about what's on every Wildcat fan's mind this week. It's U of A BYU at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Are you optimistic, Shane, that we're going to see a good football game on Saturday night?
Well, first of all, I do want to reiterate what you said, Eric. We're excited to have Backcourt Marketing, our good friend Megan Coughlin. I know we're going to talk about her business a little bit later, but she's a great friend, a great alum, and we're excited to have Backcourt Marketing on board. Well, let's just start with the obvious, Eric. Arizona's probably going to lose this game. BYU's a 10-point favorite.
Whoa.
Oh, no. You talk for like 2 minutes. And you give me a chance. BYU's a 10-point favorite. They're coming off a fantastic season. It's technically a neutral side game in Las Vegas, but there's a good chance it's going to feel like a BYU home game with most of the 57,000 fans decked out in Cougar blue and white. Heck, when Arizona played BYU in Glendale a few years ago, there were slightly more BYU fans than Arizona fans there in Glendale. So all this to say, in an effort to temper my own expectations for the Wildcats as a team, because I'm all about low expectations, I'm anxious to see how certain individual players perform. Obviously, the quarterback battle between Gunnar Cruz and Will Plummer, and going forward, I will be calling them Gil Cruiser as long as it's a two-quarterback system. Which of Arizona's quarterbacks is going to break out beyond the quarterback situation? Is Michael Wiley, transfer Drake Anderson, freshman and friend of Wildcat Country Stevie Rocker, should all see time at that position. Which receiver might make a big play to give Arizona some momentum? They have some depth there as well, even without Jamari Joyner for the time being. On defense, will guys like Jalen Harris and the guy everyone's talking about right now, Mo Diallo, help turn around an Arizona defense that had a total of 2 sacks all of last season in 5 games? Will the corners, like transfer Isaiah Rutherford, be able to limit big plays when Don Brown's blitz fails to rattle the quarterback? All of those questions I'm looking forward to having answered starting on Saturday. And if Arizona finds a way to win or at least covers the spread in this game, I'm just going to consider that a bonus at this point. That's just how I'm looking at it, Eric.
Yeah, they're 2 touchdown underdogs. And I think one thing that we have talked about, Shane, in the last few weeks is, will it be a game going into the fourth quarter? I think that's what I want to see. That's kind of the key to the game for me. And Shane and I will make our picks at the end of the show. So we're going to go down a list of Pac-12 picks, some notable picks around the nation, college game day style, and then we'll make our final Arizona BYU picks towards the end. But I just want to see the Wildcats make it a game going into the fourth quarter. 45 minutes down, 15 to go. Arizona needs to be within 10 points. Is that a realistic scenario in your opinion?
Sure. BYU's got a brand new starting quarterback, Jaron Hall. He was the 20th ranked dual threat quarterback in his class, which was all the way back in 2016. He's only a sophomore because I think he had his LDS mission. But he's thrown exactly 46 passes at the college level. Didn't play at all last season. He's filling some big shoes with Zach Wilson gone. So he's very much an unknown. He's got some weapons, kind of like Gil Cruiser do. He's got the biggest one really is their tight end, Isaac Rex. He's caught 37 passes last year, 12 of them for touchdowns. He's a big 6'6", 250-pound target. I think he's a matchup nightmare for Arizona, and I don't know how they're going to cover him for 60 minutes. BYU also has Tyler Algier, who rushed for 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns last season. But they do have an inexperienced quarterback. They do have to replace 3 guys on the offensive line. So Don Brown, you may have heard, is a fan of the blitz package. He's probably excited about the possibilities there. So sure, on defense, they could do enough to rattle BYU. If they get to the quarterback or rattle their new starting quarterback enough to create some turnovers, at least pressure the quarterback, if not get a couple sacks, then it's possible that Arizona could be in the game. The other side of the ball, BYU had one of the best all-around defenses in college football last season, but they lost 7 of their 10 leaders in tackles. They lost 3 starters on the defensive line. Now, they allowed about 120 rushing yards per game last season, 19th in the FBS. They allowed fewer than 3.5 yards per carry. But they did lose quite a few guys on defense. So, again, it's going to be a very different-looking BYU team this season on both sides of the ball. But I think we can agree if Arizona doesn't get its run game going early on, they could find themselves in a lot of trouble. So that's going to be the big key.
So Brian Peterson pointed out at RealBJP on Twitter that BYU's kicker Jake Oldroyd kicked the game-winning field goal in Glendale in 2016, and he is a 6th-year redshirt sophomore. So I pulled up the box score from that game in 2016. Taysom Hill and Anu Solomon were the quarterbacks. Nick Wilson and Jamal Williams, who is now formerly the Packers, now on the Lions, were the 2 running backs. I mean, J.J. Taylor had 1 carry. He was a true freshman. To think about how long ago 2016 was, and BYU is having players who played in that game play in this one. It's just mind-blowing. 5 years later, you never see that in college football. And, I mean, obviously that gives them an advantage. Jake Oldroyd, a very good kicker. And hopefully, if it comes down to a field goal, I like our chances with Lucas Havrasek. Obviously, they have a good one in Oldroyd. But, when you have an older team, Shane, that's one factor that we don't think about in playing BYU, but it's scary. I mean, you're having guys that are 25, 26 go up against 18-year-olds, and there's just a maturity difference here. And I think that's one thing, as I said, that you don't really talk about. We don't talk about often with BYU, but it's going to be a factor. How will Arizona players do against guys that are, 7, 8 years older than them? To me, that is somewhat of kind of a factor. Do you see that, or am I kind of off base here?
I don't think that has much to do with anything. I really don't. I mean, there's the maturity factor, but there's also the experience factor. Just because these guys are older doesn't mean they had more experience with playing college football. In a lot of cases, they don't, especially with Jaron Hall. So, and then you go back to that 2016 game, which was the beginning of a nightmare season, save for the Territorial Cup game against BYU. Arizona actually almost came back and won that game. They almost pulled it out, and then BYU went on their last-minute drive. And then, of course, you have go back to the Las Vegas Bowl. Arizona won that game. I know it's a completely different teams now, but I don't think that makes much of a difference. You have a lot of new guys on. Both teams have a lot of new faces. It's a really difficult game to forecast. I just think BYU. I know we're going to make our picks at the end of the game. It's tough to see Arizona finding a way to win this one, just because. I would feel better if they had an established QB1. If they had a guy who really stood out, whether it was Gunnar Cruz or Will Plummer or Jordan McLeod, who's buried down the depth chart now to our surprise. If one of those guys had stepped forward, I'd feel a lot better. But I'm interested to talk to Yogi Roth about those guys. Maybe he'll give us a little more hope. And again, I'm just hoping to see a competitive game. I'm with you, Eric. I'd like to see to be competitive going into the fourth quarter. To me, I just think there are too many matchup issues when BYU has the ball for Arizona to stay competitive. I'm not convinced they're going to be able to put up enough points on the board to stay competitive with BYU, at least for 60 minutes.
You brought up the 2008 Las Vegas Bowl, the last game in a Wildcat uniform of Willie Tuitama and Rob Gronkowski, amongst others. Are we sure that there is no one on this active BYU roster who played in that game? I just want to double check, because we know they have some older play. I kid. One thing that I'm curious about, Shane, in your opinion, what do you expect to see from the tempo of this offense? And I know, as you mentioned, we're going to talk to Yogi Roth and get his thoughts, but what are your thoughts as to the tempo? Because we're used to seeing fast. Rich Rodriguez, super fast. Kevin Sumlin ran a quicker offense than most with Khalil Tate. You're not seeing a ton of huddles. Do you expect it to be polar opposite of what we're used to?
I think Jed Fish is going to tailor it to the quarterback, and it's going to be what they're comfortable with. We don't know a lot about what Gunnar Cruz is comfortable with. We don't know what the offense is going to look like with him. We saw a little bit of Will Plummer, and he was okay with having more of that tempo style. So I think Jedd Fisch is flexible enough to create schemes and plays that tailor to his quarterback and his offense. So all that to say, I don't know because we haven't seen Gunnar Cruz yet specifically. We saw a little bit of Will Plummer. Hopefully we're going to see a different Will Plummer than we saw last season, at least when he throws the ball. So I don't really know. I don't really care as long as it's effective. I'm hoping that both quarterbacks utilize the check down as often as possible. But they have plenty of running backs who can catch the ball. I'm not saying that if you got a guy open down the seam, launch it, especially if you're Gunnar Cruz, who it was definitely got an arm. But otherwise, I would say just take what the defense gives you. And I think that I don't even know if Jedd Fisch knows exactly what the tempo is going to look like because he hasn't seen either of these quarterbacks in person play. So I think that this is sort of going to be, for better or worse, Arizona's preseason game, even though it's against the top quality opponent. And we're just going to have to see. I think Jedd Fisch is going to feel it out along with everyone else.
The goal this week, as far as I'm concerned, keep it close with BYU. If you win the game, it's like finding money under your couch seat. If you keep it close, it's what you need to do because the game that the Wildcats have to win, as we discussed last week with our buddy Jeff Dean, is against San Diego State in the home opener on September 11th. That is a must-win for Arizona if they're going to have any kind of a respectable record this season. So the goal is just don't get embarrassed on national television like what we saw in December against ASU. That's the way I look at it. Coming up next year on Wildcat Country, we have two guests. First of all, Yogi Roth, who is the lead analyst from Pac-12 Network, is going to join us and explain everything that he knows about his buddy Jedd Fisch, what he saw down at the scrimmage in Tucson, and his thoughts on the Pac-12. And then we're going to have the hyped quarterback recruit of 2022, Noah Fifita, talk about, well, not only his awesome performance to start the Servite season in Southern California, but what he looks forward to most about being an Arizona Wildcat here on Wildcat Country. Well, Shane, for the second time on Wildcat Country, we're glad to have one of the biggest guests that I think we've had in many months, and that's Yogi Roth, analyst for Pac-12 Networks. Really appreciate always having him on. No offense to Coach Jedd Fisch and all the other head coaches that we've had on from U of A in the last few months, but Yogi is a big deal, and we're glad to have you on. Yogi, thanks for joining us. You were down in Tucson the other week to watch the Wildcats scrimmage. Was the team better or worse than what you were expecting going in?
Much better than what I saw. I don't know if I had much of an expectation. I was there for spring, as you guys know. We talked about that, and then saw Jedd at camp or at media days. Was excited about camp. Was excited about some of the new members of the team, but I did not anticipate seeing Mo Diallo. Right, that was the first snap that I really saw when he redirects at the defensive line edge position, and I was like, "Whoa, who is that guy?" He wasn't on my board. I showed up with like my game call sheet because I'll be there next week for the San Diego State game, and instantly, of course, wrote him in with the ones. So I think that was impressive. But I think the biggest thing that I took away, honestly, was that football matters in Tucson. Because when I showed up there for that scrimmage, 8,500 students were there. It was I've done this for 21 years. I've never seen a fall camp scrimmage ever look anything like that. And it was awesome. So to me, that was like the Jedd Fisch effect in full effect, if you will. And then to watch the team play, I think the next takeaway after seeing Mo was it looked really organized. And I spent time with Jedd and some of the staff after, and I was like, that was my takeaway. You didn't see dramatic busts. You didn't see anybody play perfect. You saw some bad picks, but there weren't a ton of missed tackles. There weren't a lot of blown assignments. I saw a really sound football team. And I think in a scrimmage where, they're not going to show everything, that's something that I wanted to take away. And that was easily the number one and two things that I saw.
Yogi, thanks again for joining us. I think this is your third time on the show. We really appreciate it. Tell us about the mentality among the players, because we've had a lot of players talk about how football's fun again, and Jedd Fisch really has put a lot of fun into this. Obviously, it's one thing to say that, but just looking at the team, your experience with the players, what's the overall mentality, the atmosphere in the locker room, maybe compared to previous Arizona teams?
Well, I don't know. I think the word that I that I often have used, and I learned it from Ted Robinson, my partner who's been in this business for a really long time, is hope. And he said it to me last year when they lost to Arizona State. He goes, man, the team didn't look like they had a lot of hope. And I think when you lose hope, that's when it's fair to say, should we make a change? Right? I think hope is something really hard to recapture. And that's what I saw, and even talking to like Jamari Joyner, I talked to him on the sideline because he's still not back, obviously. And I said, how's it going, man? And he talked about how exciting it was and the optimism that's there. And he talked to Gunnar Cruz. I talked to him after the scrimmage, how excited he is for the opportunity for a new guy coming in. Then you look at Anthony Pandy and spending time with him, or Stanley at media days. And that was the word that kept coming up. Like, this team, like every team at this point, thinks they're going to go win the Pac-12. They think they're going to go play in the Rose Bowl. And these guys really believe it. And I love that. I mean, whether it happens or not, TBD, right? But man, I think for a team that lost the way they did to finish the season against a rival, with all the turmoil in and out of the portal, for Jed to come in and be a stabilizing force, and then everything has been like a rocket ship. I've been really impressed with how the players really think things are going to go well. Now, there's a challenge there, right? Coach Carroll used to always teach me there's the difference between hoping and knowing. And knowing is what our teams did at SC. We knew we would win no matter what the score was. If we were down at half, down in the fourth, this team hasn't faced real adversity yet. And Jed knows that. That's why he tried to create some of it in training camp. They're going to deal with that, maybe on the first drive if they have a turnover, or if they give up a score, or they drop a ball. That's going to be the big test when we get into their first game and the subsequent games.
So Jed announced that both Gunnar Cruz and Will Plummer are going to see time at quarterback against BYU. Do you think that's a permanent or temporary situation? And if it's temporary, who do you think ultimately wins the starting quarterback job for Arizona?
What a great question, man. Just watching that scrimmage, it was Gunnar's best performance, I think, in that type of setting, right? He completes a long touchdown pass where he could have checked it down, but he threw it to Booby Curry. I was like, wow, that's a guy who's letting it rip. And you go watch Will, and boom, 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 just consistently making the right decision in this, West Coast hybrid offense. So I don't know who it's going to be in that regard. My snapshot was only one practice. You guys, of course, have been to many more than I have. So I don't know, but I do believe that most coaches, Jed included, they want to ride with one. And he's always said he wanted to make the decision, but the decision wasn't made because the players didn't perform well enough or consistent enough to make it a one-person race in the quarterback spot. So I think it'll shake itself out. Again, I go to the adversity side of it. How you're going to operate in a game. We don't know how either one of these guys are really going to operate in front of 57,000 in Vegas, or how they're going to operate in the first home game. And I like it, to be honest with you. And I'm not a two quarterback guy, but I like it here because, breaking news, I don't think they're going to win the Rose Bowl or go to the Rose Bowl this year, but I do think that this team is trending up. And I think he's created a really competitive culture, right? He got that from Coach Carroll when we met in 2009, of that being the foundational principle in the program is competing. So if you say that, and all the players know who the quarterback is or isn't, and I bet they would all say, yeah, I don't know right now either. So Jed, with the great pulse of the program, is saying, let's just let both of these guys play and let it play out. And I love that because that's so reflective, and will be so reflective of every other position battle from day one, game one, to year 4, year 5, year 6. It'll be the same thing. And I like that for Jed versus saying, oh, I have to pick a guy. Let's pick him. He's not ready to. Nobody's separated. Let's let it play out on the field.
In your opinion, Yogi, is Arizona going to be a team that lights up the scoreboard, putting 30-plus a week like we've seen under the Rich Rodriguez offenses? Or are the Wildcats going to have to win some lower-scoring games that maybe some of us haven't been used to over the last decade?
That's a good question. I mean, Jed's always moved the ball. Coach Carroll's always been able to run the ball if you go to all the places that he's coached at. So I say that because I think the possessions will be more limited than they were with Rich Rod, right? You're getting 10, 12 possessions a game. This might be a team that has 8 or 9 a game. I still think they're going to move the ball. I still think they're going to try to create some momentum within their tempo on offense. I still think they're going to take shots. I think they're going to score. I don't think this is going to be, Cal the last couple of years, for instance, when 21-17 winning with incredible defense. I think it's going to probably be a little bit of a blend. I do know this, though. I do know that in the Pac-12 conference games over the last couple of years, the team who wins averages around 32 points a game. So you got to score. You got to score in the league. I just think that's the reality, and I think our teams and their opponents are going to score. And I don't think Don Brown is going to shut everybody out every week. Our offenses are just really good when you look at it. But the fun part for them is when you look at their first couple games, it's going to be fun because there is a world where they can limit BYU offensively, right? New quarterback. We'll see what they are in offense. They're going to want to run the football, I believe. San Diego State, their issue has been quarterback, right? Have they found an answer there? They've traditionally never been one to put up a ton of points. NAU, I'd imagine Arizona's going to win that ball game. So I think that the 3-game snapshot's going to be pretty fun prior to getting into conference play.
So what are your expectations for Arizona this year? And the second part of that question is, what, in your opinion, constitutes a successful season for the Wildcats?
Well, I think sticking together in year one is successful. And I know that's might seem kind of lame, but if you really track first-year head coaches, and let's just go back, Chip Kelly, Chris Peterson, right? Some of the true rebuilds where they came in with a completely different ideology, and not necessarily personnel-wise, but totally different ideology. Chris Peterson and Sark were totally different in their approach to being a head coach. Chip Kelly, Jim Mora, totally different to their approaches within their program. You can kind of go up and down the list. I think year one is all about kind of keeping everybody together because it's so easy if you're an older guy, you're a super senior, just to kind of drift. Whatever, I'm over it. That happens. That happens with good teams because you start thinking about the draft and you start opting out of late games or in the bowl games. We'll see that again this fall. So that's number one, is can the team stay connected? And I think that's way more challenging than is probably perceived. I think two is from winning. Like if they can steal this BYU game, right? Because we don't know what we're going to see from either team. And I think they can start the season off 3-0. I don't like predicting games I'm calling, but I think that's a reality. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat San Diego State. Then can they steal 3 more? And I think it's realistic to think this is anywhere from 3 to 6 win team this season. 3 being, you could call it maybe the floor. Like I don't think they're going to go through conference play and not get a win. I think they'll surprise somebody. Who is it? Who knows? Maybe it's UW on a Friday night in the state of Arizona where they've struggled before. Maybe they can go on the road to Colorado and get one. Nothing's going to be a layup. And as we know, so many things are going to dictate, whether it's injuries and quarterback play, et cetera. But I don't think we should be blown away if this team is in every game. I'd anticipate them being competitive in pretty much every game that they have. I think Oregon's obviously way more talented. You guys know how I feel about UCLA, Washington, USC, Cal. I'm kind of just ripping through the schedule here. They're going up against some teams that have, entrenched culture and entrenched talent, but I don't think they're going to get run out of the stadium in any game, and I don't think they should. Well, they won't be the favorite in most of them, but I think they're going to put up a fight. And as Jed said in his opening press conference, they're going to be a tough out, and I believe that to be this team's story this year. I think they're going to be a tough out.
Yogi, like you mentioned, we won't ask you to predict the Arizona BYU game, but if the Wildcats are going to pull off the upset in Las Vegas, and what I suspect is going to be a partisan BYU crowd, what is going to have to happen for them to do that? Who's going to have to step up for Arizona for them to have a chance to pull off this win?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think they're going to have to, I call it unforced errors. I steal it from tennis because my partner Teddy's calling the U.S. Open now. You can't have them. You just can't have them. So that's turnovers. Obviously, that's penalties that are unavoidable, targeting, late hits, personal fouls, sideline infractions, things like that can kill a team like this. I think I'd start there, unforced errors. 2 is I think they need to take advantage of, they'll probably get 3 opportunities in this game, whether it's a short field, whether it's a big return in the return game, or an explosive play. They got to take advantage of them. And I'll track that, and you guys track it in the game. Can they do those things? Can they take advantage of it and turn them into points? Field goals, touchdowns, we all get that stuff in the red zone. And then finally, I track this in every game I've called for the last 15 years. Is I think a quarterback needs to make 3 throws, and you could track them. I don't care when they are. I think they need to make 3 big kid throws, and they're not necessarily checkdowns, right? Which I love, but it's ripping a seam shot. It's a corner route on 3rd and 12 for a first down. Can you keep drives alive? Can you make 3 of them? And if you can, I think usually you end up on the positive side of that ball game. So those are the 3 things that I'd hang my hat on for this one.
Last question for you, Yogi, and again, we appreciate your time. Well, I guess it's a 2-part question. Who wins the Pac-12 South, and who wins the Pac-12 overall?
Yeah, it's hard. UCLA got 1 vote in the preseason in the South, and I gave it to them. And to me, ASU, UCLA, SC, and Utah, you could flip a coin among all of them. To me, UCLA had the most unanswered, or they had the least amount of unanswered questions among those 4 teams when we had to make those votes, right? They have a quarterback, they have their defense, they have so much returning. We didn't know who was going to start at quarterback at Utah. We know now in Charlie Brewer. This is a guy who's thrown for almost 10,000 yards in his career. Expect Utah to be really challenging. They probably have the best schedule of the group. ASU, we didn't know how the allegations were going to impact them. I was there last weekend. I'm heading there later today. This team is dialed. They are focused. They are talented. They have young depth. They have veteran depth. And they got a great schedule. Challenging in November, but they've got a great schedule. They got to go on the road, obviously, to UW and Oregon State. And yeah, I know who I'm talking to in this one. I obviously SC. I'm calling their game Saturday against San Jose State. This is a team that, with all the transfers, you guys in Arizona know the portal well. We know it in LA well as well. And SC brought in so many players from the state of Texas that I think elevated the maturity of the program, which is what it needed in my eyes to be a championship caliber team. They got a schedule that sets up well. UCLA is the most challenging schedule of them all. But I think the crossover games between those 4 teams, I think they'll end up splitting, and it's going to be one of those half-game wins, or head-to-head is going to be the conference title or conference champion. I'll stick with my preseason pick because I haven't seen any of the other teams play a game yet. I'll go with UCLA. Really bullish on Chip and the time he's taken to rebuild this thing the way he's wanted to. Overall, I don't know. I mean, Oregon, I can't wait to watch Anthony Brown. Big question mark for me on this team. Can't wait to watch him play. Rave reviews from inside the program on him. Washington, people are just sleeping on this team. This offensive front, this tight end, the backs are deep. The receivers, way better than advertised. Roma Dunzier is an all-conference player. Nobody knows him, but in my opinion, he is defensively. I think they're really talented, best defensive player in the back end in the country, or in the Pac-12, one of the best in the country, in Trent McDuffie. And then I look at the sleepers in Stanford and Cal. Look out for Stanford. I was there over the weekend as well, watching them. If they can be healthy, they're impressive. Their linebacking core it looks physically as impressive as Oregon's, which I think is the best one in the league. This is a front 7 that can play. Thomas Booker is going to be a first-round draft pick. They got to figure out the quarterback thing. I think they're going to play 2 to get going. I project Tanner McKee being the guy. If he's not, it's because Jack West is playing out of his mind, which would be a good thing for Stanford. So who will win it? I think a team in the North, if I had to pick. I don't know if UCLA, the one question mark is true explosive guy. Who's the real guy that when they need to make a play in the throw game, is it? I don't know. Kaz Allen, I'm not sold just yet on being that type of dude. Not Drake London. He's not Elijah Higgins at Stanford. You get to know his name. But we'll see. I don't know. That's probably where I'm at. I'm probably a little bit of a toss-up between those teams in the North and the Bruins right now.
Well, Yogi, I mean, that was a great breakdown of the Pac-12. We just got a whole analysis right there. But my last question to you is, we're going to see you on TV on Thursday, ASU game. Then on Saturday, San Jose State and USC. But you also have a new show on Pac-12 Network that starts next week. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's called The It Factory. And fundamentally, I believe that every elite athlete has that thing, that it factor. And to me, the it factor is the most overused and undefinable phrase. How often do we say it? So I presented to my bosses after spring football, where I did 9 spring games. I said, I just talked to 40 players prepping for these games. And my biggest regret is I didn't record one of those interviews. They were just Zoom calls where I was getting ready for the game. I said, I need to talk to these guys. We need to take the helmet off. They said, sure, here you go. Here's 40 episodes. Go for it. cut it loose. So that's what I've done. I got a set right behind me in my place here in Venice, California, and we've done probably 7 or 8 episodes so far. Keaton Slovis kicks it off next Monday night. It'll be on the Pac-12 networks. It'll be on all of our platforms. We have a free platform called Pac-12 Insider that anybody can get. It'll be on my podcast, my current podcast, the Yogi Roth Show. We'll transition next week to the It Factory seamlessly. So if you subscribe to that, you'll start getting these. Slovis is episode 1. Kayvon Thibodeau's episode 2. Thomas Booker's episode 3. Britton Covey's episode 4. And away we'll go throughout the season and all the way through the draft. So I'm really pumped to share some of the stories of current student athletes, former ballers like Teddy Bruschi. Teddy, if you're listening, you know I'm getting you on, man. Got to get you on this show. And a bunch of the real cool personalities that lit up Saturdays, in this conference's historical past. So I can't wait to get going and continue talking and unearthing a lot of these stories from these dynamic humans.
And the It Factory is on when? When can we find it, or how can we find it once again?
Yeah, it's going to premiere Monday night at 7:00 on the Pac-12 Network's channels, all of our platforms, social media platforms. Check out Pac-12 Insider. It's a new platform we have where it's going to have a ton of free games, ton of free original content. My show is going to be one of the headliners there. Just go to pac-12.com/insider and you can see how to get it. If you got the internet, you'll get it. So it's as easy as that, man. And you can listen to the podcast audio version as well.
He's the best in the business, Yogi Roth, Pac-12 lead network analyst. Always appreciate you joining us for the 3rd time and hope to have you on again once again during the season.
Yeah, hope to see you guys in week 2. I can't wait to get out to Tucson. I'm coming out early. I can't wait to get to practice on Thursday. My flight's booked, man.
As a business, it's essential to have a social media presence, whether you like it or not. But let's be honest, who has time to manage that? If you're going to have business social media accounts, you might as well do them right. Backcourt Marketing helps businesses actually reach their target audience online and build a stunning brand that stands out above competitors. They are the perfect team of brand advocates, creative writers, and designers who will support your business online. They work great with marketing managers, business owners, and sales leaders who are looking to increase quality leads. Best of all, Backcourt Marketing was founded by a University of Arizona alum. Start getting your business noticed and call 480-744-6173, 480-744-6173, or email team, T-E-A-M, at backcourtmarketing.com. And if you know a business that's not doing social media right, refer them to Backcourt Marketing and get rewarded. Backcourt Marketing is the marketing agency for those who love competition.
I'll tell you what, Shane, I have never seen a Wildcat commit get so much attention on social media as Noah Fifita has for the first 2 games of the Servite season. He is the quarterback at Servite High in California. He is also a 2022 commit for Jed Fish in the Arizona Wildcats. And just before we get into it, his first 2 games were a 54-14 win against Edison, where he threw for 272 and 3 touchdowns. And then the other day, he played against Mission Viejo, and you guys smoked them 44-7, 293 yards, 4 touchdowns, and you ran for a touchdown. So the hype is legit with Noah Fifita, so we're really glad to have him on for the 2nd time here in Wildcat Country. All right, so Noah, just talk about your first 2 games of the season you're dominating. Could you have ever anticipated that you would play this well this early in the season with kind of a limited 2020 behind you?
I mean, if we're gonna be technical and be honest, we haven't really, offensively at least, we haven't played to our best so far. So that's kind of been our message. We're only 2 weeks in, so there's a lot of room for improvement for everybody, including myself. So I don't think we've even touched on how good we could be as a team and how good we could be offensively this year.
No, a simple question for me to start off. What are you most excited about when you think about the future of the Arizona Wildcats football program?
I'm just excited to see where it's going to go. I mean, we starting from the top, the head coach, Coach Fish, he's doing a fantastic job on all cylinders, really turning this program around. And he has a coaching staff that's helping him. So just coming from the top all the way down to the recruits, we have a big class coming in my class: Kean Burnett, Jonah Coleman, Zeke Berry. So just kind of the names on the coaching staff, the names of the recruits that we're getting, and I honestly think we're just getting started. So I'm excited to see how this whole recruiting class shapes out, and then when it's time to come on down to Tucson, I'm excited for the future down there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned your teammate Kean Burnett. Since we last spoke, Arizona, like you alluded to, added a lot more talented commits alongside yourself to that class, including your friend and teammate tight end Kean Burnett, one of the top recruits in Arizona over the last several years. We had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. You're to thank for that. Thanks for hooking us up. Let's get a scouting report on Kean Burnett directly from his quarterback. What are the Wildcats getting with him?
I mean, first you're getting somebody who's in a tight end body, 6'5", 230, and then if you see him just walking around, he's a specimen, and we always say that when he's walking around with his shirt off or a crop top at practice, we always talk about how that's what a D1 tight end looks like. But I mean, he's built like a tight end, but he don't play like one. He could run, he could jump. Probably the best running tight end I've seen. I know Coach Fish compared him to Hunter Henry. We call him Kyle Pitts at practice. So he's definitely one of the best, not just tight ends, but he's one of the best wide receivers that I've been around. And also his IQ is off the charts. So just being able to play 4 more years with him, the chemistry we already have, it's going to be fun.
You know, Noah, it's interesting because when I was in high school, I was at a great school. My class went undefeated, but they just ran the ball the whole time. There was never any passing, and it was like, guys, put the ball in the air. You guys are completely different. I mean, you also have Kean and T-Mac, so I mean, it's kind of unfair the weapons that you have. But this attack, this passing attack, I mean, what's it like to just have the kind of weapons? You know, I know we'll bring up T-Mac a little bit. He committed to Oregon. What's it like to play with him? And then what do you think the chances of him, is it possible for him to maybe change his mind down the road? I think Wildcat fans want to know that.
I mean, it's a blessing being able to play with not one, but 2 D1 guys. And then we also have some other receivers who are underrated, or we have a young sophomore wide receiver, Emmett Mosley, and he's special. He got some offers from some big time schools. So just being able to play alongside these guys, being able to have guys to throw it to. I mean, you can't double everybody, so you kind of got to choose your poison, and then we go from there. So I mean, it's definitely a blessing being able to play with the guys I have. A great offensive coordinator, great coaching staff that put me in the best position to succeed. But I mean, going back to your question about T-Mac, obviously he committed to Oregon recently. So I mean, at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Long time till December, so nothing's official till then. So I mean, me and Key are still trying to do our part, respecting his decision, of course, but we're still trying to do our part to get him. So, I mean, you never really know what happens in the long run. So we'll see what happens.
And hopefully you can continue to respect his decision while showing some great U of A football highlights this season. Hopefully those are coming soon. Noah, since you made your commitment to Arizona in April, I'm sure you've kept in close contact. I know you've kept in close contact with Coach Fish, and I'm sure some of the rest of the staff as well. What have you learned since then about this staff, and how has that maybe reaffirmed your decision to commit to Arizona?
I think I knew they were great coaches. I mean, the background they have, the resume Coach Fish and company have, it's incredible. So that's, I mean, when I committed, that was one thing I was looking at, but also just the way they treated me. And I mean, ever since I committed, their love hasn't wavered. It's been unconditional, and they haven't. It just goes to show that they weren't being fake to me just to get me on board. So, I mean, I have a great relationship with them that's continued since I've committed all the way through, and kind of just talking to them about football. It just goes to show just how smart they really are. And I now know that when they're trying to get me to commit, they'd even dive deep into their knowledge and their IQ of the game. So, I mean, this is definitely the right spot for me.
What about some of the current players on the Arizona Wildcats roster? Have you gotten to know any of them kind of well? I know it's obviously tough with you still being out in California, but have you gotten to know any of them, and have you learned anything from them about what you can expect when you come to Arizona?
I mean, yeah, on our official visit, we hung out. We drove around and we hung out with a lot of the players. I guess the guy I shouted was Stanley Berryhill. And then T-Mac, obviously they wanted to keep us together. So T-Mac had Anthony Pandy, and then Key had BJ Castillo. So, I mean, we were around them. We were around CY. We were around everybody. So it was fun just to be around them, just drive around Tucson with them. They showed us just how big of a college town it really is. I don't think anybody really knows how big of a college town it is until you actually witness it. So that was definitely fun. But I mean, they told us about they kind of reaffirmed that decision as well, just telling us how great coaches and how great people the coaching staff is and Coach Fish is. So I mean, I've talked to Pandy a little bit since the official visit, but I'll see them again probably this weekend when I go out to Vegas.
It'll be cool to have you in Vegas at the BYU game. Unfortunately, Shane and I will not be there, so we're kind of jealous, but obviously have a great time out there, and let's hope you bring a Wildcat victory, the first of many, with you either in attendance or on the field. So I had and I won't name names, but somebody who is close to the program was giving me some grief behind the scenes. We were having a debate about quarterbacks and their height, and for you, you're listed at 5'10". And I know that there are some people, especially in the scouting community, who say 5'10" is not big enough for a quarterback. Can you explain why they're wrong?
I mean, a list of names I think will do: Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, and I mean, I think it's a new era, and I'm kind of lucky to be in this era of guys that came before me to actually give me an opportunity. Bryce Young, he just got the starting spot at Alabama. He's somebody I look up to. So, I mean, I think just that list alone, and then I think that goes to show that height at the quarterback position is starting to matter less and less as time goes on, and I just want to be another name to add onto that list.
Last question for you, Noah. And again, we appreciate you becoming a two-time guest here on Wildcat Country. Are there any other Arizona targets that maybe you're working on, either teammates or otherwise, who you're trying to nudge to come to Tucson with you? And if so, would you maybe like to use this as the opportunity to tell them why they should come join you at Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, we actually just got off of a Zoom call with Coach Fish and all the 2022 commits, and we're just talking about adding on to this recruiting class from guys that, I mean, obviously T-Mac's a big one, but even just trying to double down on the guys that are already committed, Zeke, Jonah, Grayson. I mean, these guys, Kian, these guys all have other people in their ear trying to get them to, just like we're doing with T-Mac, they got other guys in their ear trying to get them to flip over. So we're just trying to double down on those guys. But I mean, we're also going to go after some other people. I kind of got my own list that I'm trying to get, but I know Coach Fish and them got theirs. But I mean, all I got to say is to be a part of something special. I mean, no need to be a groupie. Everybody could go to the top school and just keep that tradition alive, but not everybody could go to a school that's not very high right now, and that could turn it around. So that's what we're doing here at Servite, and that's what we're gonna do in Tucson when the time comes.
And my last question to you, Noah, and by the way, always great to have you on the show, and just great answers and great info that you give us. Do you expect to start on day one when you get to Tucson, or are you okay maybe sitting for a short period of time before you get in there?
I mean, that's kind of something me and my dad talked about. I mean, I'm gonna graduate early and I'm gonna go to Tucson as soon as possible, but nothing's gonna be given. I mean, I know that all the love that they're showing right now, I mean, it's not gonna go away. But I gotta earn my spot, and I gotta show that I deserve to be on the field. So I mean, I know that the starting spot's not gonna be there for me to just go over there and have. So I gotta go take it.
I'm pretty confident in saying Noah Fifita is the starting quarterback of the future in Tucson and currently the starting quarterback Servite High in Southern California. We wish you the best of luck this season. We'll talk to you hopefully again soon. Win big in California, and we can't wait to see you on campus and dominating at Arizona Stadium for years to come.
Thank you, guys.
What an awesome show, Shane. Our first with Backcourt Marketing. If you're watching on video, check out our new sponsor. Check out that logo to my right. Pretty awesome for Megan Coughlin to come on board with us. And really excited to have her and Backcourt Marketing on with us throughout the football season and hopefully long after that. Great interviews, Shane. Yogi Roth was awesome, and Noah Fifita was great. Let's start with Yogi just for a second before we get into our picks. Just his enthusiasm for the program. What stood out to me, Yogi is talking about 6 wins. And after what we talked about with Jeff last week, I thought Jeff was the most optimistic person we've ever had on the show. Yogi talking 6 wins got me kind of excited.
I think we at least agree that 6 wins is the ceiling if everything goes well. And I think a lot of it is going to come down to if they truly have a QB1. If Gunnar Cruz, for example, just lights up the scoreboard against BYU, that will change expectations. I don't expect that necessarily to happen. And even if he does light up the scoreboard, it doesn't mean they're going to beat BYU. But no, 3 or 4 wins. And again, I think like we've talked about, we've beaten this to death. But again, as long as this team shows improvement from the beginning of the season to the end of the season and is more competitive even in losses, I think we're going to feel good about things going forward. I also want to touch on what Noah Fifita mentioned. It's important that when you got guys committed, to keep on them and to make sure they stay committed. And because I asked the question about, well, hey, who else are you trying to get on board? And he said, hey, we're trying to make sure the people we have on board stay there. And that's really important. And add that to the fact that Noah Fifita seems like he's 100% committed because he's one of the guys actively trying to keep these other guys on board. So I thought that was a very good sign. He's seems like he's mature beyond his years. I agree he's going to at least compete for the starting quarterback position go next season as soon as a true freshman. But my opinion could change on that based on what happens on Saturday. So.
Well, the numbers that he's putting up at Servite are loony. I mean, the rushing ability and the passing ability. You don't see that from a ton of high school quarterbacks. And I think the one thing that I'm sure a lot of people, not only me, took away from that interview was T-Mac going to Oregon is, looking. Obviously, there is still room for some hope, which is what Matt Moreno and Adam Gorney kind of hinted at over the last couple of weeks on the show. And I think that's, as Wildcat fans, we can just have a good season and see how the recruiting process plays out. And that's, as I said, as fans, that's all we can ask for. All right, it's time for my favorite thing that we always do, Shane, or we did last year. It's picks. And we're going to do the major Pac-12 games when they're actually playing real teams, unlike ASU, who's playing some school that I don't even know. Is it Southern Utah, I think, on Thursday, something like that? We're going to do some Pac-12 games and some of the big games in college football, and then Arizona BYU. So we'll go fairly quickly with these in case you are filling out your picks pools. The first one at 9 a.m. on Saturday, Stanford goes from the Bay Area to Kansas State to Manhattan to play a 9 a.m. kickoff. Are you taking the Cardinals, Shane, to pull the upset?
I do. I am. I think Stanford gets it done on the road. They're the better coach team. I think they're often underestimated going into the season because we don't know what they're going to look like on either side of the ball. But I just for that reason, I'm going to go with the Cardinal.
I am as well. I like Stanford this year. Yogi said some good things about them also, and I had this pick beforehand, but I'm just not sold on Kansas State. I believe they lost their first game last year. It was to some team they probably shouldn't lose to. Stanford is a team that they very well should lose to, so I'm going to go with Stanford there. A couple of big Pac-12 favorites. Oregon is hosting Fresno State. USC is hosting San Jose State. Both teams from the Mountain West. Fresno State and San Jose State had huge wins last weekend in week 0 over some not great teams. Would you think that either one of I know you're probably going to take Oregon and USC like I am. Do you think either of those schools will be in danger in the fourth quarter, either of the Pac-12 schools, that is?
I don't think so. Fresno State's got a decent defensive front, but they're not going to keep up with Oregon on the road for 60 minutes. And then, as far as USC, I wish Brent Brennan the best, but Keaton Slovis is going to be too much for his guys. So yeah, Oregon, USC, they're both going to roll.
I think USC is in a little bit of danger in the second half. I'll just say that. I think Oregon rolls. I don't know if they're a 3-touchdown favorite. I'm not sure how that plays out there. I think San Jose State puts a scare into USC. I'll say that, even though I think the two favorites, Oregon and USC, will win. Oregon State travels kind of the weird alliance starting early. Oregon State travels to West Lafayette to take on Purdue. You giving Jonathan Smith's Beavers a chance to pull the upset here?
I remember Purdue beat up the Wildcats pretty bad my last year at U of A back in 2004. It has nothing to do with this pick, but Purdue's got 9 starters back on both offense and defense. So I got to go with Purdue at home for that one.
Yeah, Purdue is a touchdown favorite over Oregon State, and I just don't see the Beavers as ready to contend in this game. Purdue, a middle of the road Big Ten team, and I don't think they're going to have much trouble with the Beavers. But a team that that might have some trouble on the road is LSU going to the Rose Bowl against a UCLA team who absolutely destroyed former ASU coach and friend of Shane Dale's, Todd Graham's Hawaii squad last weekend in week 0. LSU going on the road, the rare SEC at Pac-12 game that we haven't seen in quite a while, at least that I can remember. Who are you picking here, Shane? This one looks like a real toss-up.
Calling me a friend of Todd Graham on a U of A podcast, Eric, doesn't do me any favors. So thanks for that. Nice guy. Interviewed him for my book. Great, but we're not like tighter. Thank you. He's Eric's. If you're not watching, Eric's plugging my my second book now. Anyway, all due respect to our guy Yogi Roth, I still don't buy UCLA, and beating up on Todd Graham's Rainbow Warriors didn't do anything to change my mind. So I'm still I'll believe it when I see it kind of guy. If they beat LSU, I'll believe it, but I'm going to go with the Tigers for that one.
Yogi picked UCLA to win the South. I'm sorry, but I think Chip Kelly gets fired at the end of the year. I just don't see UCLA. I don't trust Dorian Thompson-Robinson. LSU has 5-star skill players all over the place. UCLA has 4 stars and 3 and 4-star guys. In talent alone, LSU should win this game. So I agree with you, Shane. We're agreeing across the board, but I have a feeling we might disagree on this one. Nevada, who is a sleeper team by some, travels not too far going over to the Bay Area to take on Cal. I'm going with the upset here, Shane. I like Carson Strong in Nevada and Jay Norvell, who was in the Arizona, was on the short list originally for the coaching job before Jed Fish got it. I'm taking Nevada to upset Cal and Justin Wilcox, who I also like, and we talked about back in the day. So Nevada over Cal for me. How about you?
I think this will be the best, at least the most competitive Pac-12 game, or at least a game involving a Pac-12 team this coming weekend. But we will disagree on this one, Eric. I am a Chase Garbers fan. I think he leads Cal to a win at home.
Yeah, I just there's something about Nevada. I think that's a sleeper team, a sleeper top 25 team. So we'll see if that one comes true. Our first disagreement. What we're not going to disagree on is Utah State at Washington State. So we'll skip that one. What I am curious about, we're going to do 4 matchups of top 25 teams because this great week 1 schedule. The first is an early Saturday kickoff, Penn State at Wisconsin. I like the Badgers at home, jump around. Arizona got smoked by them when they played there in 2002 or 2003. I think Penn State loses this game, by a touchdown or so. Would you agree with me?
I was actually tempted to try to pick against Washington State because they often find ways to lose at home to inferior opponents early in the season. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Cougars. As far as Penn State, Wisconsin, I'm going to go with the Badgers at home. I like their quarterback and their defense better than Penn State's, and that's pretty much all I need to know for that one. So, yep, Wisconsin.
Alabama, Miami, the rematch of the 92 Sugar Bowl where I was a Miami fan growing up. My parents went there, and I was brokenhearted watching Gino Torretta, the Heisman Trophy winner, get smoked by Alabama. Now they're playing in Atlanta in the kickoff game. Alabama's a big favorite. Does Miami at least give the Crimson Tide a game, or is this a rout?
I think Miami can put up some points, but I don't think they're nearly good enough on defense to pull off an upset, so I'm going to go with Bama.
Interesting Big Ten matchup. The Big Ten doing some conference matchups. We had Penn State, Wisconsin. We also have Indiana at Iowa. Indiana was a top 10 team for a while last year before their quarterback, Michael Penix, got hurt. Do you think they go on the road and beat Iowa, or is Kirk Ferentz's team going to stay undefeated going into a big Week 2 matchup against Iowa State?
Yeah, I guess this would be my upset pick, even though it's not a huge one. I'm gonna take the Hoosiers, mostly because I think they have the better quarterback. I'm gonna trust that Michael Penix is back and presumably healthy, so I think he's got some unfinished business. I'm gonna go with Indiana.
Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. I'm taking Iowa, and I'm comfortable with that Iowa pick. I think they win this game comfortably. I'm not buying into Indiana this year. And our last big game, and it's probably one of the biggest games of the entire season. Clemson and Georgia, 2 top 5 teams, are playing in Charlotte. I am so excited to watch this game right before, or I think it's before Arizona plays, might linger in. So that's why you got to have the 2 TVs working. Clemson, Georgia, 2 teams that very well could be national championship contenders. Who are you picking in this one?
I'm going to go with Clemson for a very super scientific reason, Eric. It's never too early for Georgia to disappoint its fans that get their hopes up every year. So I'm going to go with the Tigers against the Georgia team that's just finds a way to underachieve every single year.
And don't forget, Shane, they also have former USC quarterback JT Daniels as their starter in Georgia, and he wasn't so good, got beaten out by Keaton Slovis. So I'm not, Georgia, you're right about Kirby Smart's teams. They're always really good, but not good enough to get there. I'm going to go with DJ Uigalelele, something like that. I'll
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, I'll work on that pronunciation as the season goes along. He is my Heisman Trophy pick, the Clemson quarterback. So I'm going to go with Clemson to win a close, high-scoring game in Charlotte. And finally, in Las Vegas on Saturday night at 7:30 on ESPN, BYU will host, well, I shouldn't say host. BYU will take on Arizona. But as we talked about earlier, Shane, BYU is going to have likely a large majority of the fans in attendance. So essentially, this is a road game for Arizona. All right, I know what you talked about earlier in the show, that you think BYU is going to win the game. Will the game be close? And give us your score prediction.
It'll be close for a half or so. But yeah, it was a slip of the tongue, but maybe it wasn't. BYU hosting Arizona, probably. BYU by 17 points, like 34-17, something in that range. I think we're going to see some positive things, some big throws by Gunnar Cruz, like Yogi Roth mentioned. We'll see some semblance of a pass rush, which we didn't see at all last year. Maybe even a sack or two if we're lucky. But yeah, BYU should win the battle in the trenches. I think Isaac Rex in particular, again, is going to torment the Wildcats on Saturday. So BYU by a couple touchdowns, I'll say 17 points.
The one thing that I had mentioned earlier in the show that I'm looking forward to is is Arizona keeping this game into the fourth quarter, keeping it a close game. And I just have a sneaky feeling that this game is going to be lower scoring and closer than we expect. So my prediction is BYU 27, Arizona 20. I think the Wildcats are within striking distance the entire game and just can't get over the hump. If that happens, we'll be disappointed, but at the same time, at least there will be progress from what we saw at the end of the year. And so that would be in itself a mini win. I'm going BYU 27, Arizona 20. You're going BYU 34, Arizona 17. Either way, we have college football back. It's a great time of the year. You can't be upset with the fall starting and a home game where fans can actually be in attendance next Saturday in Tucson. Another thing I want to talk about, we are going to do some kind of a post-game show, so pay attention to social media. We will announce more plans on that later in the week. So Saturday night after the game, Shane and I will be on to talk about what we saw. And then, of course, we'll recap it all on next week's Wildcat Country. Want to thank our friends at All AZ Sports for all that they do, and want to thank our new sponsor, Backcourt Marketing, for jumping on board with Wildcat Country. Check out Backcourt Marketing, and they do a great job with social media, and we look forward to our continued partnership with them. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Bear down, and let's go Wildcats this weekend.